Now, the Bible is replete with astrology. You got to understand that. We know the Old Testament is basically Greek mythology or Greek astrology, basically, that they basically stole stories from Kemet. The whole Greek mythology, when you look at it, it's talking about the planets, Hercules and everything like this. We know where it comes from. Pandora's box, Eve and the apple, Noah's Ark, Deucalion and Pharaoh, Zeus, Jesus, so on and so forth, Samson, Hercules. We know where it comes from. So you can look at that clear and see, what it's talking about and where they ripped it off from. It's obvious to a lot of people when you look at the Old Testament, that's basically, where it all comes from. And we know Greek mythology is all in the Old Testament, but, what about the New Testament? Okay, so again, we look at Virgo. We look at the constellation Virgo. What you have is the movement of the sun. And what it does is it comes into the constellation Virgo. And as it's coming into, following its rotation into the constellation Virgo, you have, when it makes contact, it looking like Virgo, the Virgin, being pregnant. Now, as the sun continues its course, you have the sun coming out basically between the legs of Virgo, having it seem as if, a virgin birth, has been done. So you have Virgo giving birth to the sun. And that's all basically it is. Virgo giving birth to the sun, Virgo the Virgin, you have a virgin birth. It's all astrology. This is where the shit comes from. And it's crazy that when you look at the cycle and you see this being done, you can see clearly where they got the concept of a virgin birth. Now, when we read Revelations 12, it's talking about this. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. Again, we have Virgo. When you look at Virgo, you have at the bottom of her foot, you can see clearly the moon and its rotation going through its cycle at the foot of Virgo. You can see Virgo being bathed with the sun. This is all talking about the constellations, talking about what's happening in the universe. You can see over top of her head, Leo. Leo can be considered the 12-starred crown that they're referring to, but there are also 12 stars, above her head. So we can consider Leo being the crown that it's talking about. So again, when you look at this stuff, astronomy, astrology, it's all stuff they got from the heavens. As I said, this is where this stuff comes from, and this is the basis of modern day religion. And same thing with Revelation 6. When you look at Revelation 6, it says, it's talking about the seals being open. And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow. So now we can do this basically all day and go through stories or constellations and find stories in the Bible that parallel, that we can see that they clearly stole from an ancient story that deals with astrology or an ancient story from an ancient civilization. We see this all the time. And it leads to common misconceptions. It leads to problems and issues with a lot of symbols and, what the constellations itself. Some people say, oh, don't touch that constellation stuff. Don't trust that astrology. It's the devil. Oh, that's the devil's math and stuff like that, because people have no clue what it's talking about. Because, of course, the Bible would steer you away from stuff like that, from understanding the stars. Because if you understood this stuff, then you can completely debunk the Bible and see what it's really talking about. So another symbol of, a lot of controversy is this. A lot of people see this symbol and they think immediately of Satan, the seal of Satan, witchcraft, conjuring demons and stuff like that, what have you. But now this is Venus. That's all it is. This is Venus, the day star. Venus appears as the morning star in the eastern sky, before sunrise. It's basically all it is. It's the only time you can really see Venus is during this time. So now what happens is every 8 years, what people don't realize, every 8 years, Venus takes this course and makes basically this pattern, which we see as the star, the day star, Lucifer, the son of the morning. This is all it's talking about when you look at the Bible and you talk about this stuff and you read this stuff. This is what they're using, what they're talking about. It's all going back to astrology. It's all going back to the ancients and their calculations on what they saw. People never really got that whole separation of Lucifer and Satan. And when you understand, we're talking about, celestial bodies here. We're talking about planets, amazing, beautiful stuff that has nothing to do with people perceive as evil or demonic or what have you, based upon whatever movie that they watch. This is something that exists in nature and reality. It's been here long before any of us. It has been going on. So every 8 years, Venus takes this course. It makes this pattern. It has been doing it for a very long time. And a lot of people get confused about it because they don't know. They don't want to take the time. That whole phrase of people being willfully ignorant is so true. And, I can't really blame too many people, because when you get bombarded with this stuff in movies and in church, it's tough to deal with. As I said, I bit that bullet years ago where I had to really dig and dive into Satanism and witchcraft and everything like that, and learn it and study it, to study Crawley and study all the people who was considered to be evil, wicked people and what they was talking about. And, the things that they have, was said to have done. And, you have to really understand that, as I talk about, these people have to be portrayed as such, because if you understood what they were doing, you would understand the power of the powers that be, which we'll get into. So, of course, anything pertaining to voodoo and witchcraft, which is why I made the DVD, and to this kind of stuff, which is why I make this DVD, as far as astrology, astronomy, or what have you, they don't want you touching it. They damn sure don't want you to know the real truth about it, which is what we're going to get into in this video. The universal language, the universal knowledge, what they taught in the mystery schools, the sacred math, sacred geometry, or sacred science. This is what it's all about. And math is the language of the universe, whether you realize that or not. And this is what it's really all about. And this is basically the premise, the main thing we're going to get into in this video, math. And a lot of people don't realize how deep this is. Everything is math. When you look out into the universe, it's math. It exists. It's all over the place. Now, in order for you to really grasp this, to understand this, you have to just think about nothing, right? You have basically this space right here. This space right here is just empty space. If it went on forever, it cannot be calculated really, because it's just space. Until you put something there, you can't really get math. But as soon as something exists, as soon as a piece of matter exists, math is everywhere. And let me tell you why. Because from this point now to, let's say I go from the point at the tip of my finger out 20 yards, you have math. You got a distance of 20 yards. So now everything that's in this, emptiness is basically going to be relative to this one point. So you had nothing. If I go like this, now we have basically 12 inches right now. We have math. It exists. So if I go, put this here, now I put my finger here, we have math. We have 12 inches that's relative to this statue. So you get what I'm saying? Since there is matter that exists in this part of the universe, everything is math, because everything is relative to something. So in that relativity exists math. There's no way around it. It is the universal language. It's everywhere. We have math. There's no way around that. Now, he also talked about the golden number, or the golden ratio, which they call the divine proportion, which basically guides matter and the movement of energy in the universe. We can find it in our DNA. We can find it in the proportion of our bodies. Now, we also have pi. Now, pi is basically the circumference of a circle and its diameter. So we're basically talking about the distance around a circle and the distance, in the middle of a circle. Now, why are these things important? These are things that we find replete throughout reality and nature everywhere. We just find these numbers, and we find that they match up so perfectly as to the point where it has to be studied. You can't just, brush it off as a coincidence. These are these things that you just can't turn away from. When you look at the proportion, of our faces and, what people consider to be like a perfect face, Fibonacci sequence, we find it in our air. We find it in so many different things. It's just the sequence is there. And it's something that you just can't ignore or deny. Now in 1509, Leonardo da Vinci illustrated a book called The Divine Proportions. Now it's a book on mathematics, of course. Now in this book, it's basically talking about the shapes that basically make up the reality. And it's really relative to everything. There are shapes, you can just, from here to here, if I go boom, boom, it's a shape here, whether you can call it whatever you want. It's a shape. And in that weird shape, you'll still be able to find like a square or a triangle or a rectangle or what have you. And because you can find these things, they can be calculated. Numbers can be found. So, it's everywhere. It's divine mathematics or, what have you, whatever they want to call it. Now, the whole thing is when you understand Da Vinci and, everything that he did, we see the golden ratio. Now, remember, Da Vinci gave us his version of the Vitruvian Man, which we know that other people did the Vitruvian Man before Da Vinci. We know Giovanni Giacondo was one of the people who did a Vitruvian Man as well. Now, the Vitruvian Man is basically based on Vitruvius, who was a Roman mathematician. He was a Roman mathematician, but also a Roman architect who basically used the proportions of bodies. He was obsessed with the proportions of bodies. He used it in his building. So the Vitruvian Man that Da Vinci created, we see is basically the Fibonacci sequence. We can find the golden number in almost everything that Leonardo da Vinci did. A lot of people look at the Mona Lisa and they just can't understand what's the point. What is it all about? Well, the Mona Lisa contains the golden ratio and the Fibonacci sequence. The Last Supper also contains the golden ratio. It's found everywhere in Da Vinci's work. And a lot of people don't understand why they don't get it.